Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Newsnight where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Rico Hizon. Just half an hour ago, President Bongbong Marcos delivered his first State of the Nation address. The red carpet was rolled out for the President and his family at the Batasang Pambansa in Quezon City, as well as for over 1,300 guests, including members of the 19th Congress, former top officials, cabinet members, justices, and the diplomatic corps. This was the first full in-person SONA in 2 years. In just a moment, our chief correspondent and anchor, Pion Tiveros, will be joining us live from the House of Representatives for the highlights of the President's speech. Throughout the show, we'll be bringing you the latest on the ground with our correspondents, Rex Remitio, Cian Arcangel, and Amor Santos, covering today's big event at the Batasan. George Cahiles, David Santos, and Anjo Limario reporting on protest actions. And Paige Javier and Caroline Bonquin on other top stories. Let's now head to the Batasang Pambansa, where we're joined by my colleague, Pion Tiveros. Pia, what was the crux of the State of the Nation address of President Marcos Jr.?
Hi, Rico. I'll get to that in a bit. But first, I wanted to go through this very quickly. If the forces that unseated his father in 1986 and campaigned against him very vigorously in the last election couldn't believe the day that was the night of May 25 that he was proclaimed by a joint session of Congress as the winner of the presidential elections in this very same building. And also, if they couldn't believe the day that he took his oath as the 17th President of the Philippines at the National Museum, that was June 30th, they most probably cannot believe that this day has come either. That a new President Marcos delivered a State of the Nation address in the building his father built to house the interim and regular Batasang Pambansa that was meant to replace a Congress that was padlocked and dissolved by martial law by the elder Marcos. But that is exactly what happened today. Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., Bongbong Marcos, delivered his first State of the Nation address. The younger Marcos given 2 standing ovations. First, when he said he would build specialty hospitals in all regions, and when he said he would never abandon a single or a square inch of territory, because he said we are a friend to all and an enemy to none. Applauded around 70 times in a 1 hour and 19-minute speech, which he started off by saying we will find solutions, and these are some of them. He began with a plan for economic recovery to mitigate the efforts of the pandemic, and he said to contain future shocks. Very quickly, he went through the economy, agriculture, agrarian reform. He talked about condoning loans, payments for land acquisition, tourism, the creative industry, talking about the creative industry, DSWD, helping the poor, education. He said it's time for kids to go back to face-to-face classes, connectivity, health. He said no more lockdowns and let's roll out that booster shot program right away. English as the medium for instruction, he said, because that is our advantage compared to the rest of the world. Technology, connectivity, infrastructure. He said all these infrastructure projects that the Duterte administration began, he said, and quote, we quote, full speed ahead. Those were his instructions to the Department of Public Works and Highways. Build, build, build. Energy. He talked about renewable energy, nuclear power even, going to that down that road, nuclear power. He talked about disaster-proof planning, fresh water supply, migrant workers and their challenges. He also did come out with a list of proposed legislation. There were about 20 of them. Among the more notable ones was this proposal to bring back Reserve Officer Training Corps, or ROTC, for grade 11 and 12 in the National Service Act. He talked about amendments to EPIRA, amendments to the BOT law, and many other different proposed legislation. He did end with saying that we will endure. Our Filipino spirit remains undimmed, and the State of the Nation is sound, he said, and he ended at around 4:19 in the afternoon. Now, very quickly, we just want to remind people that this is a new president coming off an election. 55.5 million Filipinos voted in that election, and of that 55.5 million, Bongbong Marcos got 60% of that number, or 31.6 million votes. The third biggest mandate in Philippine electoral history. That 55.5 million who voted, by the way, that represents an 83% turnout of the 67.4 million registered voters. Now, that 60% of the 60%, no, that went to BBM, that is reflected in all these pre-election surveys. Of course, that was several months back. Pulse Asia saying in January, putting BBM at 60%. In February, putting him at 55%. The Lilo survey in April, putting him at 64%. So this is the first SONA of for this president, for President Bongbong Marcos, coming off an election, coming off an inaugural, and coming off an election that was very hotly contested, if you will. Rico?
Thank you so much, Pia, for joining us at the Batasang Pambansa. Pia Ontiveros will be back later on Newsnight with more details on the first State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos. And as the president takes the helm of a country deep in crisis, what did he say about key measures to help revive the economy? Let's listen to this.
In terms of the economy, we will implement a sound fiscal management. Tax administration reforms will be in place to increase revenue collection. Expenditure priorities will be realigned and spending efficiency will be improved to immediately address the economic scarring arising from the effects of COVID-19 and also to prepare for future shocks. Productivity-enhancing investments will be promoted. Our country must become an investment destination, capitalizing on the corporate recovery and tax incentives for enterprises through the CREATE law and the economic liberalization laws such as the Public Service Act and the Foreign Investments Act. Ecozones will be fully supported to bring in strategic industries such as those engaged in high-tech manufacturing, health and medical care, and all emerging technologies. This is also seen to facilitate economic growth outside of Metro Manila.
President Marcos hopes to grow the economy by up to 7.5% this year. Are President Marcos's plans enough to arrest the rising prices and lead the economy towards recovery? We now go above and beyond the headlines with former Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines President Francis Lim. Francis, thank you so much for joining us. Your reaction to President Marcos Jr. first SONA in terms of economic reforms, job creation, and turning this economy around, which has been challenged by the two-year health crisis and now rising consumer prices?
Well, I thought that it was a very good roadmap for his presidency.
Mm-hmm.
The country coming from the scars of the pandemic. No? And I think it shows his political will,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that he is surrounded by good economic managers, no? And as shown by his appointments. No?
Francis,
I'm
which
sure that
specific, features of the economic reform package did impact you the most?
Generally, everything, because it's just a continuation of the gains of the Duterte administration. No? He spoke about the CREATE Act, he spoke about the amendments to the Public Service Act, and he spoke generally on making the Philippines an investment destination. Investments are what we need in order to help us recover from the pandemic. Investments are what we need in order to make our country competitive. Investments are what we need in order to give employment to our brother Filipinos and sisters, Filipino sisters and brothers investments are what we need for making this country compete with the rest of the neighbors. No? And at the end of the day, what we in the business sector would like to see is a competitive Philippines. And all those ingredients is clearly spelled out. Some of them are very courageous. And it just shows that he has a roadmap, no, that will make him succeed. No? And I think, of course, the challenge is
how realistic,
execution.
Francis, how realistic though is this economic agenda of Bongbong Marcos? Can it be attained over the next 3 to 6 years?
I think it can be attained within not within that next 3 years, but within his presidency if he is consistent in the execution. Of course, the devil will be in the details, but time will show how determined. Time will show his political will. No, as these laws, for example, as these regional specialized hospitals and so on and so forth. Will take place. No? It
but
remains to be seen. But
aren't these promises too ambitious, Francis? Because you need a lot of money to be able to finance these projects.
It's ambitious, no? But he talked about revenue generation, good fiscal management. He talked about efficiency in spending, and the Duterte administration, for all its faults, have shown that if there is political will, especially in terms of putting in place the laws that are needed to spur investments, to spur economic activity, it can be done.
He also talked about implementing taxes for the digital economy. This has been discussed over the past couple of weeks. Why didn't he touch on taxing single-use plastics?
That's one thing I wanted to hear, no? But anyway, in fact, I think that this digital economy is a rich source for taxation, for revenue generation. And that's why I was happy because, digital taxation is itself controversial. No? Some say that it might discourage the Philippines from leveraging on the digital economy if it tax the players. No? But I think this is one good revenue course from the taxation point of view.
Okay. Francis, we have about 30 seconds left before the end of our interview. There were several key issues that he did not touch on. What do you think will be the reaction of the business community towards these issues? He did not touch on corruption. He did not talk about fighting drugs. And he did not even look into the possibility of changing the form of government to federalism. Do you think that these were important issues that he should have really excluded from his State of the Nation address?
Well, it goes without saying that corruption and rule of law are very important. And if I read this mind correctly, I think that perhaps his advisors said that no need to mention them because it was mentioned time and again, but to no success. But underpinning all this economic agenda that he has, all these policies, is the rule of law and corruption. That's why, and when he said about efficient government spending, that a big part of that is to avoid corruption. So he did not say so, but I'm hoping that that will be a big factor when he talks about efficiency in administering or spending government resources. Because if a big part of government resources, government money goes to corruption, then there goes his plan.
All right. From the vantage point of a businessman.
It did not be mentioned.
From the vantage point of a businessman and former Phoenix president, how would you rate President Bongbong Marcos's first SONA from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 the lowest, 10 the highest?
I would rate it as 8.5.
Thank you so much
8.5.
for your insights on President Marcos's first SONA speech, former Phoenix President Francis Lim. And when we come back on Newsnight, We give you the latest from the newly convened 19th Congress with Senate President Mig Zubiri and House Speaker Martin Romualdez now at the forefront. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. News you can trust.
Josel Dariaga po.
At Maita Basa David.
RPN DXKP Pagadian. Ang inyong Radyo Ronda. RPN. RPN. Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. Live to the world. Pinaagi sa FB page. Karon, mag-download na. Pinaagi sa Google Play o Apple Store, YouTube o Twitter. Alang sa mas kipakuskan ng mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran o kalingawan. Ang mas kipakuskan ng inyong Radyo Ronda. Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Welcome back to Newsnight. Hours before President Marcos delivered his first State of the Nation address, thousands of protesters marched to Commonwealth Avenue to demand relief for Filipinos. They call for an end to human rights violations, tracing back to the term of the president's father and late dictator Ferdinand Marcos Sr. George Cahiles has a story.
The protest here at Commonwealth Avenue pushed through with thousands of activists not minding the changing weather. Amid the crisis, protesters are calling for economic relief in the form of government financial aid to vulnerable sectors and the suspension of taxes on oil. They're also calling for job security and minimum wage increase. Activist groups also laid down a 9-point People's Agenda for Change, which include reviving the agriculture industry and prioritizing food production, prioritizing pro-people economic development through land reform and national industrialization, adopting a clear government policy to fight disinformation, to protect freedom of expression and press freedom, instituting a democratic, ethical, and accountable governance, and providing free healthcare and basic social services for the people.
Kung pagbabatayan natin ang kanyang inaugural speech, ang kanyang appointment sa cabinet, yung 3 weeks na siya ay presidente, wala tayong inaasahang makabuluhan na gagawin niya para magkaroon ng tunay na pagbabago. Hanggang ngayon, wala pa rin tayong Department of Health Secretary. Ang kanyang economic policies represent continuity of the tried and tested anti-people, anti-poor, anti-worker programs. Kaya itong ating SAM na People's Agenda, yan po ay hinaharap natin sa publiko para tao mismo ang kikilos para ipaglaban ito.
Protesters peacefully ended their program around 12:30 in the afternoon. George Kailes, CNN Philippines.
Government supporters also gathered for President Marcos Jr.'s SONA. They're holding a concert rally on a portion of the IBP Road in Batasan Hills, Quezon City. Senior correspondent David Santos joins us now live. David, what is the situation there where you are right now?
Well, Rico, let me first tell you about the reaction of the people here with regards to the president. The more than hour-long president, through a number of cheers from his supporters that gathered outside Batasang Pambansa, particularly here on ICT Road that you mentioned. Now, among the many issues raised by the president, his pronouncement reiterating his administration's policy against the reinstatement of pandemic lockdowns probably drew among the loudest cheers. Well, that's perfectly understandable since most of the president's supporters that gathered here belong to the classes the C's and E's. They were among those most affected or significantly affected by the government-imposed lockdowns for the past 2 years. Now, the other issues that drew reactions from the crowd included the president mentioning about government assistance to single parents, as well as the return to face-to-face classes. Police Lieutenant Colonel Elizabeth Hasbi of the Quezon City Police placed the crowd estimate here at IBT Road at around 4,000. As of 4 in the afternoon, she could not say at the time if the crowd had picked by 4 p.m. The presence of members of the presidential security group here has stoked speculations that the President Bongbong Marcos might drop by and address his supporters. However, Vice President Sara Duterte did drop by several minutes ago. She gave about a 2-minute speech, basically thanking their supporters, their support for them during the elections, as well as for their support for this current administration. She also encouraged their supporters to continue, show their support to this administration with all the policies outlined by President Marcos in his speech today. Now, for now, Rico, there is no word yet if President Marcos will make an appearance in this concert initiated to show support for him. By the way, this concert is still ongoing as we speak. Rico.
David, thank you so much for that update. David Santos reporting. Before President Marcos delivered his State of the Nation address, the 19th Congress opened its first regular session. The Senate and the House of Representatives began their sessions earlier this morning with the lawmakers approving concurrent resolutions stating they would hear the presidential address. Lawmakers also formally elected their leaders, with Senator Mig Zubiri taking the role of Senate President and Representative Martin Romualdez, the President's cousin, becoming House Speaker. A Senate supermajority, a 2-member minority bloc, and 2 siblings choosing to become independent. Amor Santos gives us a rundown of the new Senate leadership.
It's official. Mig Zubiri is the new Senate President. 20 out of 24 senators voted for him. They called him Trabajador ng Senado or Worker of the Senate, praising him for his work in Congress for the past 2 decades.
This Senate under my leadership, however, will be one to solve problems more than it would find faults. While probes are magnets for publicity, it is the policies, laws patiently written line by line away from the limelight that drives progress.
Meanwhile, most senior member Loren Legarda is Senate President pro tempore. Joel Villanueva is Majority Leader. The minority bloc has 2 members. Senator Risa Ontiveros announced that Senator Coco Pimentel is Minority Leader.
I accept the challenge and I thank Senator Ontiveros for the nomination.
Sibling Senators Alan and Pia Cayetano declared themselves as independent.
My sister and I can be a bridge dito sa Senado between a majority bloc that is very, very supportive sa administrasyon and a small minority bloc which is also very, very critical of the administration.
Even if it's a small minority, what is important is that we in the Senate, we will decide to act if it is for the good of the people. We put our foot down also when it is measures that we feel that are, of course, will not benefit our countrymen.
Meanwhile, Senator Amy Marcos believes it's time for her brother, President Bongbong Marcos, to show his contempt against corrupt officials and criminals.
Sabihin ko totoo?
Yes.
Okay, bilang super ate, gusto ko magalit na si Bongbong. Gusto ko magwala na siya, pangalanan na lahat ng mga agricultural smuggler na nakakasira ng ating pagsasakan lokal. Sana takutin na niya at kasuhan lahat ng mga nasa gobyerno na kilalang-kilalang corrupt sa BOC, BIR at sa iba pang ahensya. Sana magalit na siya at tunay na sabihin na dadamputin na yung mga kriminal at mga nangangalakal pa rin ng droga.
Marcos was offered 4 committee chairmanships, but she wants to prioritize foreign relations and electoral reforms. Committee chairpersons will be elected in the coming days. Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
And now let's cross over to the Batasang Pambansa, and we're joined by my colleague, Pia Ontiveros, who will now be speaking to the director of the State of the Nation Address, President Bongbong Marcos. Pia, over to you.
Thanks, Rico. Like you said, the director of President Marcos is Direct Paul Soriano, very well known in the industry also. Hi, Direct Paul. Thank you very much for agreeing to this interview. Let's talk about the different shots. I've been covering the sauna since the 1990s, and this is the first time that I saw certain shots like that. No, they tried a few in the last few years with President Duterte, but this is the first time. For example, nung naglalakad si BBM papasok ng plenary hall, that back shot, the tracking shot from the back, the shot from behind him while he's at the rostrum, the shot from the seating. Tell us all about that.
Yes, I mean,
sorry, you have your mic.
Yes, if there was really something that I could do and be cinematic about, was his walk to the rostrum, no? Because that's basically just coverage, right? So what I wanted to do was something at least cinematic, visual, pleasing to the eye. So when I was talking to the president at the palace during a rehearsal, I told him, when you enter the plenary, there'll be a camera that will automatically go behind you. Just keep walking, because I want to get the shot of the Philippine flag and I want to get you walking into the plenary. And I told him, please stop at the top of that ramp, because I want to do a 360 shot around you. And he did everything. He imagine with a sauna speech and everything, he remembered those instructions. And yeah, and we pulled it off. We were able to get it. And of course, the other 2 shots that I'm happy to say we executed was the one behind him, right? There was a camera right behind the president, so we got to see his kind of point of view. And I used this contraption. So I used this contraption.
Show this on camera, huh?
So it was I put it right here, and then this was the camera was inside here, diba? So yeah, it's pretty.
Can we show it now? No, it's not yet on air.
Okay, no problem, no problem. But
can we show this?
So there was
may delay. Okay, so eto. Okay, Paul, dito yung camera.
So the camera was in here, and then it was right behind the president. So he had that shot there. Now you could see kind of the plenary and of course him. No?
Okay.
So that's
and you brought it with you because it's now it is a memento. So go ahead, show us what's on it.
It's memorabilia now for me. I got the president to sign it. And he said, one of Direct Paul's clever, awesome tricks. Congratulations, Mr. President's signature. So that's, I guess, a job well done. And of course, I got Senate President Zubiri, and I got, of course, Speaker Martin Romualdez. So something I can,
Kumpleto na araw mo.
Kumpleto na. And then the other shot I did was the top shot.
Right.
which I kind of symbolized the shot about his father kind of looking down at his son. You know, kind of get that bird's eye, heaven's eye view. You know?
Okay, well, maraming matutuwa na
Thank you.
sa ganung shots, especially, I mean, well, those who voted for him and those who like him, no, but of course, like no, there's quite a lot of people, still in election mode.
I hope.
What are your thoughts about that?
And I hope, and I listen to the sauna, and it's impossible for everybody to not agree with it. There should be some portions of his speech that whether you voted for him, that you can agree with, and maybe that's what you need to do, because it takes more than 31 million to make this country great, and we hope, we give the president a chance. The other people that didn't vote for him or technically not supporting that, they'll give him a chance, because if we do, we're going to benefit from all of that, and I really hope that, and I know he'll perform. I really believe in him, and hopefully we can all listen to what he said and execute.
Well, in his inaugural speech, he never mentioned the 31.6 million who voted for him. He talked about the 110 million, referring to the population. He said 110 million reasons to be confident. Today, there was no mention either of the votes he got in the elections. No, so it's really a moving forward kind of speech.
It's because, like I said, I know him personally, and his heart is for every Filipino, not for just those who support or voted for him. He loves everyone, and he really wants to do a great job, and he really wants to give everyone a better country. And I know that, and I believe he will. And for those that don't believe in him yet, I hope he'll turn them into believers eventually. He has 6 years, so...
Okay. Oh, one more thing. I noticed that, and again, like I was saying, I've been covering the sauna since the 1990s. So may backlight, no? Yung rostrum sa likod niya. So it was lighted up. Usually, it's a flat. You can see the grain of the wood, no, behind the president, whoever is the chief executive delivering a sauna. This time around, may ilaw sa likod.
Yeah, well, I work closely with my longtime cinematographer, Audie Flores. So he gave it.
Audie Flores.
He's actually right here.
Here, right
so,
here.
He gave it that depth.
Friend of mine also.
He's I've worked with him for almost 10, 12 years, and when we were lighting the plenary, there's only so much you can do,
Right.
But,
very limited.
There's one thing we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure there was some depth and some separation between the president and the rostrum.
Right.
Just to give it more of that cinematic feel, and I'm glad look at it. It looks great.
Yeah. Look much better than previous saunas. Anything else you can add that you tried to do to make this one a little bit different?
Well, besides, of course, the opening, I don't know if people got to witness, but before we closed the broadcast, we showed a photo of him and his father. Father and son kind of look at each other, and maybe that kind of adds a little touch to his first sauna. But again, for me, I hope everyone is able to listen, not just those who support him, but those who don't, and hopefully this sauna gives them hope. And if they can just find something in his speech that they can agree with and execute that, then I think we can be a better country.
All right. Thanks so much for being with us tonight on Newsnight. Direct Paul Soriano. Maraming salamat. Let's head on over back to the studio. Rico?
Thank you so much, Pio Ontiveros, joining us live from the Batasang Pambansa with Direct Paul Soriano. And up next on this special edition of Newsnight, we'll be bringing you up-to-dates on the events at the Batasang Pambansa, plus the cap of former Lamitan Basilan Mayor Rose Foragay denies her supposed involvement in the drug trade. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. News you can trust.
Baby!
RPN DXKP Pagadian, ang inyong Radyo Ronda. RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. Live to the world, pinaagi sa FB page, karon mag-download na. Pinaagi sa Google Play o Apple Store, YouTube o Twitter. Alang sa mas kipakuskan ng mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran o kalingawan. Ang mas kipakuskan ng inyong Radyo Ronda. Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Welcome back. You're watching a special edition of Newsnight on the first State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos. I'm Rico Hizon. It was more than an hour speech from the President. He delivered his first State of the Nation address at the Batasan Pambansa in Quezon City, highlighting his economic and health agenda and priority bills. President Marcos recognizes the Philippines as one of the most vulnerable countries to the effects of climate change. In an interview with Chief Correspondent Pion Tiveros, Environment Chief Tony Yulo Gloizaga said awareness and education on the impact of climate change are crucial in coming up with solutions to address the problem.
The impacts of climate change are first felt in our ecosystems as well as our communities. And so we need to understand better how these impacts actually will affect our inclusive and resilient development plan, the Philippines. And so what we need to do at this point is account for our resources, be very fastidious about trying to understand systems, the interaction between the human and the environmental systems, but also, in fact, the technological systems that can assist us in mitigating and adapting to climate change. The way we need to think about risk to disasters, actually, is to think about our exposure, the kinds of exposure, and the vulnerabilities of whatever is exposed. So whether that's technological systems, whether that's human communities, whether that's our ecosystems, natural ecosystems, those all need to be understood in the ways that we need to frame our risk. And now at least we understand, given the recent disasters and the learning from other countries as well, that the risk is systemic, it's complex, and it's dynamic. So we need to continuously assess the way we are exposed and vulnerable.
And it was Pion Tiveros speaking with Environment Secretary Tony Yulo Loizaga. Before President Marcos delivered his State of the Nation address, the 19th Congress opened its first regular session. Lawmakers elected their leaders, with Senator Mig Zubiri taking the role of Senate President and Martin Romualdez, the President's cousin, becoming House Speaker. Sian Arcangel joins us now live from the Batasan for more on the House leadership and other updates. Sian.
Rico, the voting for the new House Speaker took over 2 hours as each one of the over 300 lawmakers took to the rostrum to formally register their vote. The winner of the speakership race is none other than late Congressman Martin Romualdez, the cousin of President Bongbong Marcos. He is the lone contender for the speakership and he was nominated by his nephew, Ilocos Norte Congressman Sandro Marcos, who is also the president's son. Sandro says his uncle was qualified to lead the House after holding leadership posts in the chamber for over a decade. Romualdez's nomination was supported by representatives from major political parties. No other lawmaker was nominated for Speaker. Romualdez vowed to be fair to his colleagues regardless of their political affiliations. He said his office will always be open to all lawmakers. Former President and now Pampanga Representative Gloria Macapagal Arroyo was elected Senior Deputy Speaker after the election for Speaker. She and Romualdez are both leaders of Lakas CMD, which is also the Vice President Sara Duterte's party. Meanwhile, 5 lawmakers who seconded Romualdez's nomination were elected as deputy speakers. These are Davao City Congressman Isidro Ungab, Antipolo Representative Roberto Puno, Las Piñas Representative Camille Villar, Ilocos Sur Congresswoman Christine Singson Mihan, and TUCP Party List Representative Raymond Democrito Mendoza. Zamboanga City Representative Manix Dalipe was elected House Majority Leader, while National Unity Party stalwart Reginald Velasco was named Secretary General of the Chamber. Rico, in the coming days, it is expected that more leadership posts in the House will be filled, including possibly the post of the Minority Leader, which will be elected by the members of the minority bloc who did not vote for Romualdez and abstained from the voting. Announcements regarding the committee chairmanships are also expected to be announced. Rico?
Martin Romualdez is officially the new Speaker of the House. Sian Arcangel, thank you so much for that update live from the Batasan Pambansa. Well, attendees, especially ally lawmakers, are all praises for Mr. Marcos's SONA. Progressive groups are not impressed, saying the president left out key issues affecting ordinary Filipinos. Anjo Alimario joins us now from Quezon City for the details. So, Anjo, how did the progressive groups react to the first SONA of President Marcos Jr.?
Disgusted, Rico, that summarizes how progressive groups feel after watching the entire speech of President Marcos detailing his plans for the country. They did point out the president failed to discuss important issues such as increasing workers' wages, ending contractualization, distributing land to farmers, and junking of rice tariffication law. They actually held a public viewing here at the KMU National Office in Quezon City to engage the crowd attended by groups from different sectors. They flashed signages, yes, if they favor the statement, boo if they are against it, and we if they don't believe it. Among issues that earned boost from them when Marcos mentioned taxes, especially when it comes to compliance, they can't help but reply, magbayad ka muna ng taxes mo, pay your taxes. Of course, we know there is a standing order from the Supreme Court ordering the Marcos family to pay their estate taxes amounting to billions of pesos. They also booed when the president says he'll continue and expand the Duterte administration's infra programs. They also oppose the revival of nuclear power, right-sizing of government offices, and reinstitution of mandatory ROTC. They raised the "we" signage when the president talked about inflation and target economic growth, and when he calls Vice President Sara Duterte as highly able education secretary. They also question his pronouncement on defending the country's territory. They shout, gawin mo, di pwedeng salita lang. But it's not all negative, to be fair, Rico. They did approve of his plan to bring healthcare system to the communities and address the concerns of health workers.
We are hoping that he would not be another Marcos Sr. We were hoping that he would not be another Duterte. But as it is, it seems the same programs are being manifested by the same government of Bongbong Marcos Jr. And we cannot agree with this kind of program. It is against the interest of the Filipino people. It is against the interest of the Filipino workers.
Well, as for KMU Chair Elmer Labog, they will stand their ground, they will mobilize their people inside Congress and in the streets, and the fight continues. Meantime, Rico, protesters who have earlier assembled along Commonwealth Avenue at the St. Peter Chapel have peacefully dispersed around 12:30 p.m. according to police authorities. Back to you.
Sentiments of the progressive group are mixed. Thank you so much for that update. Anjo Limario reporting. Moving now to other headlines, the gunman in yesterday's assassination at the Ateneo de Manila University is set to face more charges from the family of his target victim, the former mayor of Lamitan City, Basilan. Paige Javier has this update.
The family of slain former Lamitan Basilan Mayor Rose Furigay is determined to put her killer behind bars for good. Furigay's family is filing multiple murder and frustrated murder charges against Dr. Chow Tiao Yumol. Lawyer Quirino Esguerra says Yumol has 8 pending arrest warrants and had been in hiding since 2021.
Very clear naman sa nakita ninyo na pinlano niya ito. At saka kinukondem ng pamilya to the highest point ang ginawa nito.
The Furigays will also pursue the over 70 cyber libel cases against the suspect. Esguerra says the feud between the Furigays and Yumol goes as far back as 2018. Then Lamitan Mayor Rose Furigay closed down his infirmary clinic for operating without a permit. Esguerra also belied Yumol's claims that the Furigays are involved in the illegal drug trade.
Walang katotohanan niyang pinagsasabi ng gunman na yan. Kaya hindi pinatulan ang mga accusation niya dahil puro lang yun paninira.
The PDEA refused to comment on the claims of Yumol. In 2019, Yumol reached out to the Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission to investigate the Furigays. He lamented what he called the lack of action on his complaint. Former PACC Chairman Greco Belhica denies this, saying they referred his case to proper authorities who can investigate and file charges.
Ang nasampahan po ng DILG ng kaso ang kanya pong mga kalaban sa Office of the Ombudsman. So, ibig pong sabihin, hanggang ngayon, hinihir na po at pending ang kanyang case. Issue niya po sa drugs ay nano na rin po sa PDEA at sa mga pulis.
Belhica says some of the evidence presented by Yumol were old photos and did not support his claims. He then urged the Marcos administration to give more support to the justice system.
Panawagan sa ating gobyerno palakasin po ninyo ang ating justice system. Sa Kongreso, give budget to the courts and to the ombudsman.
The League of Provinces and League of Cities of the Philippines condemned the fatal shooting. The LPP calls for a swift investigation to make sure justice is served, while the LCP vows to fight criminality in the cities. The Ateneo de Manila University says it is reviewing its security protocols. Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
Apart from Furigay, other victims who were killed during the shooting were her executive assistant, Victor Capistrano, and Ateneo security guard, Genevieve Bendiala. Well, you can count on CNN Philippines for the latest on the first State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos. Keep it right here on Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
RPN DXKP Pagadian. Ang inyong Radyo Ronda. RPN. RPN. Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. Live to the world. Pinaagi sa FB page. Karon, mag-download na. Pinaagi sa Google Play o Apple Store, YouTube o Twitter. Alang sa mas kipakuskan ng mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran o kalingawan. Ang mas kipakuskan ng inyong Radyo Ronda.
Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
You're still watching a special edition of Newsnight. Filipinos were glued to their television sets, smartphones, and gadgets this afternoon to hear the President's plans for the country. Melissa Lopez is on the ground in Marikina City. So what has been the feedback to the first SONA of the President?
Rico, we spent the afternoon in a bustling salon in Marikina, and the area quieted down just before the clock struck 4 p.m. Everyone there, stylists and customers alike, focused on the screen to hear what President Marcos had to say to the people. Now, there was, some of the workers continue their business, while some of the customers stayed to finish the sauna. Even though they're already done with their visit, there was a collective sigh of relief when they heard Marcos announce that there will be no more COVID-19 lockdowns, as well as for his push for full face-to-face classes.
Oo, mas malaki matutulong no kasi kumbaga yung mga tao hindi na mapipigilan para pumunta ng salon, tapos yung mga face-to-face na eskwelahan, mas matututo ang mga estudyante.
Many were pleased too with the recent focus on food prices. Amid recent increases, others were candid with their thoughts as the speech stretched beyond an hour. There was also quite a reaction when Marcos said he wants a law requiring the ROTC or military training for students, and that part on nuclear energy. Still, some have noted that certain national issues were left out.
Sana lahat ng sinabi niya matupad niya lahat. Kasi dito kasi sa parlor kasi yan lagi ang mga usap-usapan na sana ang bigas bumaba, mga ganon. Sana yun nga matupad niya yung sabi niya na ganon. Sabi niya maging high-tech na daw.
Yung pinakaano ko nagustuhan ko yung ating sovereignty. Territory natin kasi yon. So, kailangan ma-preserve natin dahil Pilipino tayo. So, atin yung bansa natin. Sa drugs, medyo, kasi ngayon talamak na yung drugs. So, parang hindi niya natakel yung drugs. Marami kasi ako nakikita, talagang sobra na.
People also collectively nodded to the president's plan to keep and expand the Build, Build, Build program and to help farmers better. Back to you, Rico.
Melissa Lopez, thank you so much for that update live from Marikina City. Turning heads at Marcos's first sauna were stars and public officials in traditional Filipino wear. Style icon and Senator Chis Escudero's wife, Heart Evangelista, Dawn Pinoy designer Mark Baumgartner's take on a modern-day Filipina. Senator Rizon Tiveros also wore a modern rendition of the Filipiniana with Joel Acebuche's piece made of Aklan Piña fiber. She wore this with a hand-woven pigok bag from Samar and Marikina-made pumps. And here's Paul Soriano, director of Mr. Marcos's State of the Nation address in a classy black barong. Going to her ading or sibling's first sauna, Senator Amy Marcos flaunted a Jan Garcia gown with a standout puffy sleeves and beaded detail. But this year's State of the Nation address marks the return of fancier clothing, including long gowns. Former President Duterte assigned a simple business attire dress code for his sauna events. Well, this has been a special edition of Newsnight on President Marcos Jr.'s first State of the Nation address. Catch the replay